Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dare to Get the Job. My name is Oleg Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. Anisha DuBois is a 2006 graduate of Norfolk State University with a degree in mass communications and journalism. Her professional career spans across music, sports, pop culture, fashion, and voice acting. She held roles at Music Choice in New York City as a programming coordinator, writer for Clear Channel, Hip Hop Weekly, and allhiphop.com, a production coordinator at Comcast Sportsnet in Washington, D.C., an associate producer at E! News, and the former Fashion Public Relations Director Americas for Wild Fox, and then all the brands under Australian fashion labels, respectively. In 2019, she founded luxury e-commerce retailer Well Unknown, which focuses on emerging fashion brands, where she serves as the site's creative director. She's currently a public relations consultant for the fashion brand Los Angeles Apparel, created by the founder of American Apparel, an adjunct professor at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising FIDM in Los Angeles, where she teaches an intro to PR course, and a voiceover actor for Nickelodeon, Mattel, for example, Barbie, American Girl, Enchantimals, video games, several films on Netflix, and more. In addition to all of the above, she recently authored 2 books, a self-help journal entitled It Always Works in Your Favor, and a children's book entitled Passport Poppy. It details her young daughter's travels around the world. And with that, I present to you Aneesha DuBois. Aneesha, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Oleg. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here, I'll share the entire desktop, and then I will just make this larger. All right, there we go. First, I want to say to all of you, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time for the hour and a half or so that we'll be together. I am very big on alignment and hearing things, along the way that you need at a certain point in your life or a certain time. So I feel that we are all here together for a reason, for the greater good. So thank you so much for being here. So I'll get right into it. So this here, as Oleg was reading in my bio, this was everything that he was talking about. And I want to start off by saying, you know that saying that they say it's like a jack of all trades, master of none? I am here to tell you that that saying is bull. You can absolutely master as many trades as you want to, so long as you have the passion, desire, and commitment to do so. And I basically am proof of that, as you can see here. My career path has included all of these companies. And at all of these companies, I've held roles of significance. After I'm gonna go detail my career journey, but after I got hired at Wild Fox as their PR manager, I went out with the PR director at the time. We went to some like Rihanna Fenty event, and after a few drinks, I don't think she was being mean, but after a few drinks, she had said, you weren't the most qualified, but you were the most excited. And there, at that moment, I wasn't offended or anything, but at that moment is when it clicked for me, because every role that I've had, I was never the most qualified, but I was always the most excited. I was always the most enthusiastic. I always dared to do more before even getting the role. And because of that, I beat out every qualified person, or every person that was more qualified than I was. They may have had 10 years. I may have had 1 year. However, I still, beat them out for the role, because and that's where I believe it starts, right? And believing that I could, daring that I could, believing that I could, daring myself to even apply, even if I did not have any prior experience in the role. So I dared, and I did. So I believe that is true for all of you, but no matter what your career journey may call for. So I'll talk about my career journey since college. So like Oleg said, I graduated from Norfolk State in Virginia in 2006 with a degree in mass communications and journalism. After that, I graduated with a job in my field at Music Choice in New York City. So right after college, I moved right to the big city of New York. And I worked at Music Choice as a programming coordinator for 2 years. And then I started to get this itch, like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. So I moved to Washington, D.C. I will say in college, I had this goal that I'm going to work New York, D.C., and then make LA home. Moved to New York. I moved to DC from New York, and I got a job at Comcast Sportsnet. So basically, Comcast Sportsnet was the TV network for the Washington Nationals, the Mystics, the Commanders, every team you can think of, the Wizards. And I did that for about 2 years, and I did some on-air stuff with them too. And then I got that itch, like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I want to do something else. And so after that, I moved to LA because I had this dream, this wild dream of working for E! News. Didn't know who, what, when, where, why, and how, but I wanted to work for E! News, and I moved to LA January 2011, and I got hired at E! News as an associate producer. And I was there for about 2 years, and then here comes that itch. I don't know why it was on average every 2 years, but I wanted to do something different, and I knew I wanted to get into PR because at E! News, I basically worked with celebrity PR, fashion PR to get assets to put on the show. And you can be PR for United Airlines, you could be PR for, Burger King, for Barack Obama, whomever. And so I had to sit down and say, what type of PR do I want to get into? And I knew I loved fashion, and probably because I used to get like a lot of free stuff from the fashion PR people. So I was like, I'd love to do fashion PR. Like I've had a love for fashion since I was a child. And so I made my mind up. And about 2 weeks after that, I saw a position for a company called Wild Fox. I applied online. I also emailed the PR director at the time. She brought me in for an interview 2 days later. And then a week and a half later, I got the job, and it was amazing. I like traveling to Paris for Fashion Week, in New York, in Miami Swim Week. It was the most fulfilling role. And then I still wanted to stay in fashion PR, but I wanted to, with my time at Wild Fox, I developed so many contacts and relationships, which I'll talk about in a second too, how important they are. And I knew that I developed like contacts at, Harper's Bazaar and Vogue, and Wild Fox was a great company, but Wild Fox was a company that celebrities would wear on their couch, or they would wear Wild Fox, leaving yoga class. And I wanted to be able to use my contacts for those red carpet looks and all that amazing stuff. And so put it out there. I'm a big believer in manifestation. So I put it out there, and a friend had emailed me a few months later, was like, hey, Australian Fashion Labels is hiring a PR director of America, if you know anyone. And I'm like, hello, me. So I ended up applying, and I got the role, and I was in that role for about a year and a half. And then they wanted to part ways, and it was more so a business decision. And I didn't fault them at all. It was a clean break. They gave me a severance, and basically what they paid me and my coordinator in salary, they could pay a PR agency a quarter of that and have 7 to 10 people working on the brand. That didn't end up working out for them because they ended up bringing someone back in-house. However, after I left them, I then got pregnant with my daughter, who's 3 now. And I was thinking, what do I want to do? Like, I know I want to be able to work from home. I want to watch her grow. I want to be a brand within myself. What can I do to do that? And so in 2019, I launched Well Unknown, which is a luxury e-commerce e-tailer, and we focus on emerging brands. So think about a Farfetch, an ASOS, but more upscale. So I launched that, super amazing. It's still going strong. And I got back into voice acting. I did it on this very, very small scale when I was in school. But when in LA, it's a way bigger fish. And so, or a way bigger pond. So I was able, through relationships, I was connected with an agent, an agency. They ended up signing me. And now I am a voiceover talent on Nickelodeon. So I do all of the promos. So you probably heard my voice. It's like, coming up next on Nickelodeon. Like that's that's the promos I do. I'm a couple characters on Rainbow High, which is amazing. If you all have young children, I know you're familiar with Blippi, so I do the voice of Felicia Firefly on Blippi. Several films on Netflix. Netflix is in the Netflix now. They're buying a lot of like French films and then dubbing them in English. So I am doing the English audio. So that's been exciting, and just, becoming this character and, stretching my creative chops, for lack of better words. And then I wrote a book. I wrote a children's book called Passport Poppy. My daughter and I, we travel a lot. So it's like all our travels all over the world. And I just got a distributor for that. So I'm super excited about that. And then I still do some PR consulting on the side. I am Los Angeles Apparel. The founder of LA Apparel was the founder of American Apparel, but then he kind of stopped that and started LA Apparel. So I, myself, just me, for this multi-million-dollar company, I am their sole PR consultant. And that is awesome too. So that is the spark notes of my career journey. And I'm only 38. So I still have a lot, I've done a lot, but I still have a long ways to go. So again, if you came on late, the first thing I said, if you're looking at this mosh posh of all these brands, one of the first things I said was that quote that says like jack of all trades, master of none. It is absolutely not true. You can absolutely master many things, so long as you dare to and have the passion to do so. So moving on, tips and tricks. These are things that, moving through sports, entertainment, the music industry, fashion, pop culture, PR and marketing, becoming an adjunct professor at FITM. I forgot about that. I teach at FITM, intro to PR class. I will say these tips and tricks that I've learned, they ring true. No matter what industry I was in, all of these ring true. So the first one I will say is that in daring to get the job is don't just apply via the career site, right? Also reach out to whom you would be reporting to. And, of course you want to apply the way they say. So if they say apply on Indeed.com, apply on LinkedIn, apply on Craigslist, however, apply that way. But then in the job description, it always says who you'll be reporting to. Email that person. The worst that they can say, first, let me say, in emailing that person, because of Google, it's so easy to find emails. When I emailed the person at Wallfox, I literally Googled her first and last name, and an old press release popped up for the company, and her contact information was at the bottom. I emailed her, she emailed me back in 15 minutes. I had an interview 2 days later. So reach out to them via email. The worst, I know that can be maybe intimidating to some because you may be reaching out to the VP of a company, but dare to do it. Dare to do it, because the worst that they can say is that the job has been filled. The worst that they can do is say that is not reply at all. So again, the worst that they can say is that the position has been filled. I'm sorry. The worst that they can do is not reply at all. They're not going to email you back and say, don't you ever email me. They're not going to do that. And I am telling you this by experience. And I have an example. When I was at Australian Fashion Labels, I was hiring my PR coordinator, and the VP of sales, I reported to the vice president of sales. He came out of his office. We had put the job up on Indeed.com. So I was getting an influx of applicants, and my VP of sales came out of his office. He had printed the resume and then the additional materials that the young lady sent. He had printed them out and bought them to me and said, she's the one, because this applicant had found my VP of sales information. She emailed me as well. She found my VP of sales information and she emailed him, and he thought it was the best thing ever. I'm talking about he printed out her resume and her materials and brought them over to me. And he wasn't mad. He wasn't upset. He wasn't like, who is this girl emailing me? He was like, she is the one, because she dared to email him. She wasn't intimidated by, his title. She showed initiative, and he thought it was the greatest thing ever. Also too, in doing that and reaching out to who you'll be applying to, it's helping you be seen, because what happens is, LinkedIn now has this great feature where you see a job and it'll say, hey, be the first of 25 applicants, be the first of 10 applicants to apply, right? That's great. But let's say they open it up for 100 applicants, and you may be applicant 101, or you may be applicant 51 and they're only going to look at the first 50, right? The hiring person may say, the hiring manager may say, give me resumes 1 through 25, and then give me 35 and 50, because those are my lucky numbers, right? We really don't know what the process is. And I am telling you from my experience, when I'm hiring, you get an influx of applicants, and you may cap it at 75, or the hiring manager may cap it at 75, but by the 74th or 75th one, they may be just skimming, right? Or maybe they put it in a program that looks for like keywords in your resume. But if you take the time to email them and briefly say, hi, I applied. I also wanted to email. This is what I've done. I would love to come in. I would love to have the opportunity to interview quick, maybe 2 paragraphs, maybe 2 to 3 paragraphs. It's worked in every single, opportunity I've wanted, job I've wanted. I've always taken that extra step, and it has always 100%, 10 out of 10 has paid off. Again, just make yourself be seen. My second tip and trick is following up. There is so much power in following up right after you apply and then after you interview, right? So you apply, you apply via the way they say, and then you email the person. And then after you secure the interview, it's also following up. It's showing interest. I do this all the time, and 10 out of 10, it's worked for me. I remember when I had applied for the associate producer position at E! News. I did the interview process and all that stuff, but I wasn't hearing back, and I was getting so nervous. And in my follow-up email, in response to my follow-up email, Peggy Abraham, who was the executive producer of the show at that time, she emailed me back and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Thank you for following up. I'm so sorry. When I had applied, or when I interviewed, it was during the royal wedding between Kate and Will. So at E! News, it's pop culture, so they were all over the place, and then the time difference, it was a crazy time for them. They had some of the team in London covering the royal wedding. And so her response to me was, "Thank you so much for following up. I'm so sorry. It's kind of crazy here." But then that settled me, right? That settled my anxiety. And then that also let her know that she wants this. And about a week and a half later, I got the call saying, they wanted to offer me the role. And I was so excited, because this is why I moved to LA. I was so excited that I don't think in my reply, I said yes, because she was like, "Okay," she said, "You're accepting, right?" And I was like, yes. And she was like, "Great," because I had the next person. If you were to say no, I had to call the next person. So following up, it just shows initiative. It shows you want it. And again, it just sets you apart from the standard apply, and then, hope for the best. Another tip and trick I have is day one. Day one, as soon as you get into the company, begin building relationships and nurture them. It is why I am the sole person who is the PR consultant for a multi-million-dollar fashion brand, Los Angeles Apparel. It's just me in my living room. And it's because of relationships I built. 7 years ago at Wild Fox, we had a consultant come in. His name was Elton, and he was working with the brand. And I would have thought Elton didn't care for me, because every idea Elton had, I would say, "Well, no, I don't think we should do it that way." I was very, I was taking in information, but I was also I think we should do it this way. Let's try it this way. So I would have thought Elton didn't care for me, but maybe about a year and a half ago, he emailed me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, hope all has been well. I'm at LA Apparel now. They need a PR consultant. Would you want to come on board?" And I'm like, and how alignment works. When I had met with him via Zoom 2 days later, I was wearing Los Angeles Apparel sweatpants. And at that time, I had no idea really like what it was about. And so again, that was a relationship that 7 years ago. So your relationships are everything. They've helped move me. When I first launched my fashion business, Well Unknown, I had a profile feature on WWD. And if you're in this fashion space, WWD is like Vogue. It's like the Bible in fashion. And I had a profile piece based off a relationship I had built and nurtured with one of the editors. And I say this too, I say relationships are very important, because whenever you leave whatever role you're in now, or the role you get in the future, when you leave there by choice or by force, your relationships are the only thing that you can take with you, right? You're going to have to give back the laptop, the company phone, maybe the company car, but those relationships those are yours. Those are what you've nurtured, what you've cultivated. Those are what you get to take with you, and no one can take them from you. No one says, hey, give me back all your relationships. Give me your Rolodex, right? No, those are yours. And they help carry you through this business. My relationships, even across voiceover, the work that I do in voiceover, I'm assuming I'm pretty good. I was recently offered an opportunity. I'm the voice of Xavier on one of these shows called Go Kid, on Whale of a Tale on a network called Go Kid Go. It's an audio podcast for children. And they reached out to me wanting me to develop my own show. And I have my own show coming on this network with, again, I'm probably beating out everybody who was most qualified, but my relationships and my daringness, I now have my own show. It's just the wildest thing ever. So relationships, they're the only thing that you can take with you that no one can take from you. And I promise you that they will come back to help you grow in your career journey, or move onward and upward in your career journey. And then my fourth tip or trick is, even if you don't have all of the experience the job calls for, still apply. I know that a lot of job descriptions will say, you have to have 10 years experience or 5 years experience. If you have 4, if you have 3, still apply. And now listen, I'm not going to, apply for a job as, an ER doctor or, pilot or director of aviation for the FAA, right? I'm not going to apply for jobs like that. But if it's in my wheelhouse, if I feel like this job is in my path, it's on my journey, I absolutely apply. Like I told you in the beginning, the director of PR at Wildfox told me, you weren't the most qualified, but you were the most excited. And when I, not even having, when I became a programming coordinator at Music Choice, I had never program coordinated anything before. I was coming right out of college when I got hired in sports entertainment as a production coordinator. I had never production coordinated anything. E-News, I had never associate produced anything. And then the same at Wallfox and AFL. Before, when I got to Wallfox, I had never PR managed anything. However, when they saw my resume, when for instance, when E-News saw my resume and they saw sports entertainment and music on there, they saw that as enough. Even though I didn't have 3 years experience or whatever it called for, they saw my past experience as enough and interesting enough to have me come in and interview. And then from there, I did the rest, in the interview process. So again, dare to apply, even if you lack a year or 2 in the experience that they're calling for. And then last but not least in my tips and tricks is to intern, shadow, and volunteer. I know this, this Zoom or this Dare to Get a Job is for adults only. However, if you are taking 1 class, 2 classes, you are eligible to apply for an internship. I swear by this. Because for a few reasons. One is because when you get in and you intern, right? Let's just say you're trying to get a degree in PR and marketing, right? And then you don't intern, and then you graduate, you get into the field, and you're like, what the heck is this? I can't stand this. I can't believe I wasted 4 years in school for this. When you intern, shadow, or volunteer, you get a chance to see what it's like. So when I graduate in a year, 2 years, 3 years, I know what I'm getting into. I have a feel, I can see what I'm getting into. And if you do get a chance to intern, shadow, or volunteer, don't just do so in the department that you'll be, wanting to work in. So for instance, if you want to go into PR and marketing, and if you get that PR and marketing internship, ask 1 or 2 days out of the week, ask if you can shadow the production team, the operations team, the sales team. 1, because we all work together, right? All departments work together for the greater good. And then 2, you may say, oh, PR is horrible. I want to do fashion, production, or I want to do fashion operations or whatever. So it just helps you, no one likes to waste time. No one likes to waste time. And in interning and shadowing and volunteering, it allows you to be sure that I love what I'm doing. I can't wait to get into this field. So I am a big believer of interning, shadowing, and volunteering at Music Choice. It's how I got my first job out of college. I remember when I graduated, it was only 2 of us. Out of all the students who graduated, there was only 2 of us that were graduating with a job in our field. A few students were just going to go back to school because they hadn't quite figured it. And it was no shade to them. They just hadn't quite figured it out, and they didn't get the dream job they wanted upon graduation. So they were going back to school. And at before Music Choice, the summer, I will always go home for the summers and work. And I'm from New Jersey, and then Music Choice was based in New York. So I reached out like, hi, I'm going to be home for this summer. I would love to come up and volunteer for the day. Absolutely. Smaller companies will have no problem with you coming up for a day, volunteering on a shoot or shadowing for the day. Bigger companies like Disney or Nickelodeon, I'm pretty sure they're a bit more strict. So you have to do the applying process and all that. But if it's a smaller company, ask if they have a shoot coming up, or if they have a big conference coming up, if you can assist, if you can volunteer, shadow. Absolutely. Companies love that. And then it also shows, your willingness, right? So again, when I went home for the summer, before my senior year of college, I reached out to Music Choice. They said, absolutely, come up for the day. I went up for the day. I stayed the whole day there, watching how they do this, following this person around, getting the mail, just seeing how the company works, so that upon graduation, I could know if I really wanted to get into the music business. And they remembered that. They remembered my willingness, me just daring to reach out and take the Greyhound bus from New Jersey to New York and spend the day there. And before graduation, maybe about 3 months before, I reached out and I said, hey, I'm graduating in 3 months. If you had any job, they're like, oh, we don't have anything right now, but reach out a few weeks before you graduate. Reached out a few weeks before I graduated. We have a job. And I started maybe like a month. I graduated around June, and I think I started in like July, like right after the 4th of July holiday. But they remembered that, right? They remembered this girl came up on her summer break to work with us for a day and help us out for free, right? That just showed my willingness. And, when the job opportunity came, I was top of mind for them. And so wholeheartedly, I believe in interning, shadowing, and volunteering. And again, even if you're taking one class, you still are eligible to volunteer or intern. And if not, then try the shadow and volunteering route. Can I just come up for a day and just see if that works? So those are my tips and tricks. What to bring to the interview? This is like, I swear by this or the points I'm going to go through, because I didn't have the 4 years it called for. Maybe I just had 1 year, maybe I had a half year experience. I knew that if I was to get an opportunity to get in front of them, I am going to wow them. My resume, when I went in for Wall Fox, for instance, my resume was at the bottom of the pile, right? Because they had already seen my resume. My resume was good enough that they thought, let's bring her in. I didn't want to repeat what we talked about on the resume, right? I wanted to show them because they had already seen my resume. And of course, they'll sit there, with the usual questions and what did you do for them and how long and all that great stuff. But I wanted my interview to be a bit greater. So bring visuals, however it relates to your industry. Don't just tell them what you can do via listing down your resume, right? Use this opportunity to show them. You, out of 100 applicants, you are one of 10 that is going to get to sit in front of them. Use this opportunity to show them what you can do. Show them your creative ideas in the form of printed materials, right? When I went into Wall Fox, again, I had never PR managed anything in fashion before, but I knew that people in PR, they did press releases. So I had wrote up a mock press release just to show them my writing skills. I could have said all day, yep, I wrote press releases for e-news, but I wanted to show them I can write a press release for your company. I can speak, I can be the voice of Wild Fox. I had creative ideas printed out for brand expansion. I was just ready. Like, again, I'm going to use this 30 minutes to show them or show these two people what I can do. Show them your design capabilities if it relates to the company. And again, they know what you did for other companies, right? Again, just use this to show them what you can do for them. I think the downside to that, some people can say, oh, I don't want to waste my time. What if they don't hire me now? They'll keep my ideas or they'll use my ideas. Listen, you thought of those ideas, right? The company didn't even, the company never thought of those ideas. You did. And they may have those ideas. They may have your ideas, but they can never execute them as well as you would. So let them have them for free. If you don't get hired, well, right? But if you really want the position, just use that opportunity to show them what you can do for them. Stand out, dare to just go a little further, a little deeper. I talked about showing your writing skills in a mock press release if the role calls for that. So again, it just depends on what the role calls for. And because I've had so many different roles in music and sports and pop culture, I have to like tailor what I'm doing for each role. But discuss your ideas for brand expansion and brand awareness. So let them know, hey, day one, you get me in here, I'm ready to hit the ground running, right? So that is my advice and what to bring to the interview. Again, your resume should be at the bottom of the pile because they've already seen that. And again, this has also worked. 10 out of 10 for me. This has worked. And then I want to talk about a few things. I have 4 points here. How to scale, right? I would say if you're wanting to scale in your company that you're in now, if you're wanting to, in a job opportunity may be opening up at the company you're at now, should you want to leave that company and move onward and upward somewhere else? I would say first, when you want to scale, first ask yourself, if you want to be the senior VP or the manager or the executive of that company. And if the answer is yes, then stay on that path within that company, the trajectory, and you keep going. If the answer is no, then I believe you should move onward and upward somewhere else or begin to look for other opportunities. Case in point, at Music Choice, at Comcast Sportsnet, which is now NBC Sports, at E-News, at Wall Fox. Remember I was telling you about that 2-year itch, right? That I don't know why, out of every 2 years. And I believe it was because, in those it only took me 2 years to gather everything I needed, gather the tools I needed, the expertise and the experience I needed, the relationships. It took me 2 years. In those 2 years, I also knew, I don't think I want to be the VP of Music Choice. I don't think I want to be the executive producer of E-News. Once my days started becoming like mundane and very redundant, I knew that it was time for me to get out. I'm also a big advocate on like mental health. I've dealt with anxiety, and I just know for my mental well-being, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I never want to feel stuck, or I never want to feel like it's the same, repetitiveness. And don't get me wrong, it works for some, maybe, most, but for me, it was always that 2 years. And I asked myself, do you want to be the VP of Music Choice? Okay, stay here and keep going. Do you want to be the VP of Music Choice? No. Okay, well, let's take everything that we have and let's begin to look for other opportunities to move onward and upward. How to be daring and how to step out of your comfort zone in different industries and realms. I would say for this and how to be daring is, we all have an inner compass, right? You all have that inner compass within yourselves. Trust it, right? It's nudging you. If you get that little inkling or that little nudge that, maybe I want something different, I want something more, I'm yearning for a different industry. When you feel like your time has come to an end or is coming to an end in your current role, and you feel that you've learned all you've needed to learn at this stage, right? That is your calling. That is your higher power is daring you to step out your comfort zone and do something different. And listen, your comfort zone at that point in time may be, giving in the resignation letter. You stepping out of your comfort zone at that time may be going on Indeed.com and looking for, other opportunities. It doesn't have to be as drastic, quitting your job and having nothing else lined up, right? It doesn't have to be that drastic. Stepping out of your comfort zone can just be taking small steps, to get you where you want to be next in your journey. And again, you just continue to move onward and upward. Dealing with anxiety. So again, let me first preface this by saying I am no trained medical professional. However, I myself have dealt with anxiety. And I have learned that, now if I feel an anxiety or a panic attack coming on, I've learned how to control it. Like I can stop it right in its tracks. And I will say that my experience, my what I would tell you in that instance with dealing with anxiety, because listen, changing careers and moving and doing something that doing something different than you've done for the last 10, 5, 3 years can cause anxiety. But my advice to you would be just to do it, right? Because I found that the more I thought about it, right, the more I thought about, oh my God, what if, then I spiral, my mind spirals, and then I'm like laid out on the floor somewhere. But however, if I just dealt with it and if I just did it, like, just apply, Anisha, just leave, Anisha, if I just did it, my anxiety subsided, right? I think that also lends to you being very, I know you all have, higher powers, or you all may be very spiritual. I know that whatever decision, I'm very comfortable, I know that God and the universe will take care of me. And I know that, on any decision I make, if I had the thought about it on any decision, I can make a decision, arms out, eyes closed, fall back. And I know that the universe and my higher power will catch me, right? So that helps me too with anxiety. Like, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. Like, it's okay. It's just your mind trying to freak you out. It's okay. So my advice in dealing with anxiety is just to do it, and then it subsides, right? You may, of course, you'll get the other what ifs and all that, but just keep doing it. One foot in front of the other. One foot in front of the other, right? And then this way you're not standing still. You're moving. You're moving forward, and then eventually that anxiety will go bother somebody else. Basic steps for the introvert, if you're wanting to be more daring and what you are comfortable with. I will tell you that moving through industries, right? From music to sports to pop culture to fashion to now voiceover. Each role, called me to be more outgoing than the previous, and so on and so forth. Listen, I work from home now for the past 3 years, but even before then, I love my couch. I have a relationship with my couch. I love my couch. I love Law and Order SVU. I can sit on my couch, watch Law and Order SVU all day long. I'm an introvert, right? However, when I left Music Choice, when I left college and went to Music Choice, I would have to go to music events, right? When I got to E-News, I would have to go to certain like events or red carpet events. And when I'm going to events, when I was going to those events at E-News, I could go to the event, walk in, get my little drink and stay in the corner, right? But then when I got that nudge, that inkling to move forward, and I got hired at Wild Fox as the PR manager, now I'm having to put on the events. So I just can't go into an event, grab my drink and sit in the corner. I now have to welcome people. Hello, how are you? How are you doing? You got a drink? Are you good? You need anything? Making sure talent feels good and talent is comfortable. And now in voiceover, when I am when I get a voiceover role, I'm having to go into a booth and there's people on Zoom and there's somebody in the booth, like everybody's looking at me while I'm making these funny character faces and noises and doing all of these motions, trying to get into character, right? Every role that I was feeling pulled towards, or I felt a calling to do, forced me to be less of an introvert. So, but don't get me wrong, because after I'm done the event or, the voiceover, I come back to my couch and turn on SVU. But just know that those are the basic steps. You don't have to like be an introvert and then throw a party for 100 people in Beverly Hills or something like that, right? It's just basic steps, just baby steps. And if you're feeling a calling or, a pull towards something, it's at that right time. So when I was at, Comcast Sportsnet, for instance, I didn't have a desire to be a voiceover artist again, right? It didn't come when I was at E-News. It came after fashion, right? So it came at the right time. It was the steps, for me to be more open, with being a creative and things like that. So that would be my advice there. Just taking the basic steps. You may say you're an introvert. I love staying home, but when you get this role, it's going to cause you to go out to an event or put on an event or greet people, and you will master it. Trust me. There's no like introvert, extrovert classes or anything like that. You are, it's in you for a reason. It's in you already. You just needed the right opportunity or role or, right timing to bring that out of you. And then last but not least, this slide here, as you can see, like I have all those Nike checks. And by that, I mean, just do it, right? Do not let fear stop you. It's crippling. If you have anxiety like I did, it messes with our anxiety. Don't let fear stop you, because on the other side of that is a better you, for everyone, for yourself and for the greater good. I had gave the commencement speech at my high school last summer, and I was telling the students, and this is for everyone, even myself. When you have a thought, or if you have an idea, you have it for a reason. It was given to you. It wasn't given to Jeff Bezos, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, me. It was given to you. And what an honor that is, right? Only you can bring that to the world. That's a privilege. So when you have that thought, when you have that idea, stay with it. Dare yourself to stick with it. It may take a year, 2 years, 5 years, but trust me, on the other side of that, you are going to be like, thank goodness I stayed with it, because you never want to be a what if person. Like, what if I stuck with that? What if I did that? I do that now with gymnastics. Every time the gymnastics rolls around every 4 years, I'm like, what if I stuck with gymnastics? I could have been the next Simone Biles, right? But I did it, and here I am. But if you have a thought, if you have an idea, you have that for a reason. It was given to you, and it's for you to bring to the world. It's for you to bring to the greater good. And again, when you have that thought, that idea, it could be for you to bring it to the world in the form of your own business, or it could be for you to bring it to the world in the greater good in the form of someone else's business. Think about if with COVID-19 and the scientists or the chemists who are coming up with, the drugs to cure COVID-19, or, to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Like, they didn't have this idea, or I don't know how it works, like this perfect mixture or formula, and start their own company. They bought it to the greater good through Pfizer, through another company. So, again, if you have that idea and it feels a little bit too daunting, or too like, how can I do this? Basic steps. And you may be able to do it within the company that you're at now. And then, you branch off and do your own thing. And then last but not least, I will say, I said this before, but the greater good is waiting on you. So again, that idea, that business plan, what you've been thinking, a new delivery company, a new restaurant, the greater good is waiting on you. Yeah, so we're waiting. And that is, that is all I have to, say as far as daring to get the job.
Anisha, thank you very much for that presentation. And you didn't stick to gymnastics, saying you're not the next Simone Biles, but I feel like that's good for us, because we get to see you here, and we get to get advice on how to dare to get the job. So
thank you.
very nice. We had a few people say, I love your presentation in the chat, which is always nice to hear. We really appreciate the feedback, any comments anybody has. And we do have questions in the Q&A. And if anybody out there still has questions that you have not posted yet, please do post them. So Anisha, if you're ready, let's get to some questions.
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
So what advice would you give to someone to start something online, or being hired to work remotely? So let's talk about working remotely. A lot of relationships are easier to make, I would say, in person. How do you transfer those kind of skills to building relationships remotely?
That's a great question, because this is something that we've never experienced before. Any of us living today, I don't think we've ever experienced like a whole pandemic for 2 years. And I do feel like if the pandemic had not happened, I may have had to, go back into an office. But I will say the world is opening up a bit more, with restaurants and, coffee and things like that. So when you feel comfortable enough, I would say, take those Zoom conversations, take those emails back and forth to coffee. You want to do coffee, or let's just say you're only emailing back and forth, and you may live in different, you may live in New York, someone may live in LA. Let's meet on coffee for Zoom. Let's meet on Zoom for coffee. When you can, try to take it away from the computer, because, we're human beings and we thrive off that interaction, right? Just being around people and energies and all of that great stuff. So I would say when you're comfortable enough and if it calls for it, it doesn't have to, you don't have, if you don't want to be around, 200 people at an event, you can always say, hey, do you want to meet for coffee? Hey, do you want to meet for happy hour? I love a happy hour. Do you want to meet for happy hour? I'll be in your city in December. Do you want to, go out for drinks, or do you know a new place to go? Repeat, whatever. So I would just say when the opportunity presents itself, try to take it off of, out of the internet computer realm.
Yeah, and I would say that you can make small talk on, in remote work in a similar way that you would make small talk when you're anywhere else. If you
Yeah,
pay attention to what people say
yeah,
in group chats, people talk about what they did over the weekend, what their interests are. Remember
absolutely.
that and pay attention to that. Or when you're just chatting with somebody individually, either via video chat or text chat, you can always ask, how was your weekend? And people who are willing or interested in becoming becoming more friendly, or getting to know their coworkers, they'll say what they did over the weekend, and you get to learn
Exactly.
about people that way, connect via interests.
I will say my partner, he works via Zoom. And, after the Zoom call ends, he stays on Zoom with like one or two people and they talk about NFTs, and I don't know how that started, but I'm assuming that started by like somebody mentioning, oh yeah, the NFT project, it's simply, I don't know how it came about, but after the
Mhm.
Zoom call ends, those three or those two are staying on. They're like, what about this NFT? What about this Ethereum? Or what about this Bitcoin? So, like you said, like the small talk can turn
Yeah,
into, building better relationships.
it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
So what if the position you're applying to doesn't list who you'll be reporting to? How do I reach out to the supervisor? This person is applying to an IT position, but the job description doesn't say who manages. So how do you do that research? Where do you start if it's not immediately obvious?
Yeah. So I would just think of it as like, the career trajectory. So if you were coming in as an IT manager, you're probably going to be reporting to the IT supervisor, or the IP or the IT director, right? Or the manager of IT. So just think of your position and then the next step. And then just go on LinkedIn and Google IT manager for whatever the company's name is, and it'll pop up and it'll say this is the IT manager, and then it may say this is the executive director of information technology, right? But that IT manager is, I'm pretty sure, the one you'd be reporting to, and not the executive of, or director of IT. So just start there. Just think of, this is my position. What's right above me? Right above you is pretty much who you probably be reporting to. And if not, reaching out to that person may, they're going to have to work with you. So if they love what your resume says, they love what you're saying, I'm pretty sure they then forward it, to whom, they're reporting to, or something like that. So again, just think of right above you. That's 9 out of 10 times who you'd be reporting to.
Awesome, thank you. Do you have a website that introduces you to people?
Yes, I have a website, just my first and last name. So Aneesha, Aneesha Dubois, Dub as in boy, OIS.com. So on that website, it has like, like my self-help journal. It has like all my voiceover roles and, all that great stuff. So yes,
I'll put that in the
AnishaDuBois.com. Thank you.
I'll put that in the follow-up email also, so that if somebody doesn't have it right away, they'll be able to access it later.
Thank you.
All right. Next question. What is the best way to re-enter in a specific industry? This person studied finance before, but hasn't worked in that field since they graduated.
Mhm.
And so they're wondering how they can, if they volunteer, get an internship, but they're not a student anymore. So, people
Yeah.
expecting internships they think about that it's for
Mhm.
students. So do you have any tips?
I would say, just do it. Just like find that role, like you know where you left off, and you know where you feel comfortable, at what level you feel comfortable executing. So let's say you left the field, as a finance manager, but you know that you have what the job description calls for, finance, excuse me, I don't know the correct terms, but like a finance executive or something like that. If you have that experience, who it doesn't matter that you had a 2-year break. And I'll give you a perfect example. When I had got hired at E! News and as an executive producer, what's crazy is the first job I applied for was to be the assistant for segment producer. So on E! News, there's 4 producers, there's 4 main producers for the show. And I had first applied to be their assistant. So I would have been the assistant for 4 producers. I didn't get that job, super depressed. It's probably why my anxiety spiked. I was like, I moved here and I blew my only chance. And then I don't know how. And I tell you, this is why I believe in the universe and all that amazing stuff, because 2 weeks later, I got an email from Peggy Jo Abraham and it said, "Hey, Anisha, I received your resume. Would love for you to come in." And I was like, how did she even get how did she get my resume? Like, I didn't get the assistant job, but she wants me to become an associate producer. Like, I was mind blown. And when I went in for the interview, the resume that she had didn't even have my Comcast Sports Network on it. So in her eyes, she still saw me qualified. And to her, based on my resume, I hadn't worked in 2 years, and she still saw me qualified. Like, it sounds crazy because it's crazy. So to answer your question, that gap isn't always a bad thing. If you've had like a gap, in work, listen, I think a lot of companies now are very sensitive, which is a great thing, to mental health and people needing breaks. So if you have that year off where you did nothing, that's okay. You took care of yourself, right? And my role from, Comcast to E! News was a perfect example, because to them, it looked like on paper, I had not worked in 2 years via my resume. And they still saw me fit to come in for an interview. And then, a few weeks later, I got the role. So I would say that break, or if you're getting back into it, just do it. Just dare yourself that you know what you're capable of, right? You know what you can do. You have the utmost confidence in yourself. Just do it. Dare yourself to apply, and you'll be astounded at the things that line up in your favor.
Just do it. It's a great slogan. Whoever thought of that?
Right?
They made the world a better place, and not just for Nike.
Exactly.
That's a good, and I think that applies to the internship question too, where there's maybe more of an internal assumption that internships are only for students, but I think that if they just apply and see what happens, a lot of companies might say no, and then that one company might say, "I don't care if you're a student or not. We need somebody to help out with this. This person is in a learning state. This person has some experience already. So why not?"
What I was telling my, I started teaching at I'm like right in the middle of not even right in the middle, at the start of the pandemic. And so in-person classes then went to Zoom, and I was, meeting students on Zoom every week. So I've been doing that for the past 2.5 years. And the students at those graduating, they send me emails because they were so nervous. I graduate and I don't know, there's no jobs. What am I going to do? They were so nervous. And I was telling them, honestly, they're in a great position, because sadly, when the pandemic hit, all of these companies had to let go the people they were paying 6 figures, and they couldn't afford insurance. They were letting all these people go, and now these companies are bringing in contractors or freelancers, and these companies are kind of like starting over because of the pandemic, and they don't have the money to pay that qualified person 6 figures or high 5 figures, but they want to take that chance on you, right? You have the fresh ideas. What TikTok is, and the next, thing that's going to pop up in 2 seconds. So I would tell them, and I meant it, you are in a great position, because these companies, they need someone, they can afford you. They can't afford who they had to let go at this time. But they need people. And so also too, those kids coming out of college had a lot more flexibility, right? Because us adults, we have a ton of responsibilities, from home responsibilities and children and all of that stuff. But these kids coming out of school, for the most part, they just have themselves, to worry about. So as far as like that interning and just doing it, and not feeling like I'm not going to do it because I'm fearful that I won't. Well, then you're going to be stuck in that fear, and then you're just stuck, right?
You're not going anywhere.
If you dare yourself to do it, because again, like I was saying, what's the worst that can happen? When you apply, the worst that can happen is them not call you in for an interview. The worst that they can do, or the worst they can say, is that it's been filled, right? They're not going to doom you, to another planet because you applied. So just do it. Just
Yeah.
do it.
So we had a comment in the chat here. I was hired temporarily in the recruitment assistant position. I did not listen to the EDD staff say I wouldn't find work if I hadn't worked in 10 years. I did. They wanted some other experience this person had. So,
Yeah.
there's these naysayers.
Yeah, exactly. And like, listen, people, when it's no shade to my grandmother, but my grandmother's generation, she was in her late 80s. In her generation, they were taught that you get a job. They're very stuck in their ways, right? And they were taught that you get a job, you stay in that good job for 40 years, you collect your retirement, and then, you leave and do your passion. And my mother's generation a little bit too, but I feel like, our generation and younger, we're following those passion projects, those things that truly make us happy, because we know that everything will align and will be okay. So again, I think it was Pat, like how Pat was saying, you have those people who are in those roles. And again, that could be why I got the role over the people more qualified, right? Because I came in with the fresh ideas. I wasn't doing the same thing that the PR people were doing for the last 10 years, right? I had different ideas coming from music and sports entertainment. So yeah, I always feel, when you hit a no, it's just redirection. Like that no isn't a dead end. It's like, oh, no, okay, that means I need to go this way, I need to go this way, I need to go around or maneuver around. So I love that. Yeah, you didn't listen to them. Just do it.
It's not a knockout. It's just part of the
fight. It's just and that's exactly what this journey is, right? It's just like, oh, you thought this is what you wanted, and then someone hit a no, or someone, it wasn't what you thought, and it's just a redirection to go this way. But you're continuing onward and upward. You're never stuck if you don't want to be. So keep going. Who cares what they say?
Exactly. So we have a in question. I'm going to read the question verbatim because I really like how this person wrote it. Hi, Anisha. Thank you for presenting your amazing career journey. Could you share any tips that would help us build confidence? Also, how to develop contacts without much experience? Thank you.
How to build confidence. I would just say that in building confidence, know that you're in that role for a reason, right? Like you got that role, and absolutely you can execute what they're asking for. Not too long ago, I had a I'm very confident in like my VO abilities, my voiceover abilities. And not too long ago, I had got an audition for a Minnie Mouse sound match, like voice match, because they're doing a new Minnie Mouse toy, and they needed a Minnie Mouse voice match. And I had never voice matched anything. I had never tried to sound like Mickey Mouse or Daffy Duck. But I got the audition, and I was just confident. And I don't even know if it was confidence. It was just like, I'm going to dare to do it. I'm not going to pass this audition by because I think, oh, maybe I don't think I can sound like it. I listened to the reference track on YouTube, and I was like, and I did it. And I got the role. So I think your confidence, it just comes from within you. It comes from within, right? Like you be confident. In order to be confident, or in order to have the most confidence, you have to be confident in knowing that you are where you need to be. Right? Like before I got into voiceover, this type of voiceover I'm in now requires a bit of acting, right? So I knew I wasn't getting the roles back then, and I wasn't getting an agent back then. So I wasn't really confident, but I knew, let me take some classes to get better. And I took classes for about 2 years, and now I'm good to go. There's no more classes. I'm getting booked. So I think the confidence comes from just knowing you are right where you need to be. Right? And if you feel you need a class, or if you feel you need to do something to boost your confidence, or take a class, take a webinar, do so, right? Sometimes, the mind is a crazy thing. And so sometimes even in all the things I've accomplished, I can still get down on myself. Like, am I doing enough? like, shoot, I didn't get that role. Am I good? Or like you can question yourself. It's just how the mind works. And when I need to, in that moment, when I need to boost my confidence, I have a slew of self-help books. I pick up any self-help book, The Secret, The Four Agreements. I pick up any self-help book. I turn to a random page and it gives me exactly what I need to get me back on that confidence level playing field, if that makes sense. So again, just be confident that you are where you need to be. And you are great at, what you're doing now. And to answer two parts of that, to answer about how to build contacts, this comes from reaching out, attending events. So, at Wild Fox, I would have to go to fashion events. Like influencers will have events for something they're launching. We would launch a perfume, and I would have to talk to editors because I need editors to get the brand, in press. And so it just comes naturally. You don't have to force it. So I think, enforcing it becomes very inauthentic. But just like reaching out when it calls for it. So if you have to put on, an event, just reaching out to this caterer, reaching out to this press person, reaching out to this person to speak. It just starts by reaching out when you need, like, for instance, if you need a mentor, it's just reaching out, just reaching out to certain people. And slowly but surely, your Rolodex just becomes like a snowball, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, that would just as it calls for it, just reach out. And it'll continue to build. Your contacts will continue to build.
Anisha, you make it sound easy. Just reach out for people. We're
No,
like,
but let me tell you how it is. It's very easy because, not too long ago, there was this NAACP panel, and it was like, on African Americans and, in the entertainment industry. And there was a panel of women speaking about women in animation. And it was maybe, it was like the panelist host, and then four women of color who worked in animation. One worked at DreamWorks, one worked at Disney, one worked at Nickelodeon, one worked at Netflix. And I'd listen to the panel, and they just like this, and they were saying, yeah, reach out to us. No one ever put their email in the chat or anything like that. They just kept saying, reach out to us. So about a month and a half later, I reached out to the woman who worked at Nickelodeon, and she emailed, I reached out, mind you, to all four of them. And the woman who is the VP at Nickelodeon, she emailed me back about a week and a half later, and her and I had a Zoom call last week, and she said, send me your information. I'm going to forward it to this person and then these two people. And it was as easy as that. She didn't say, don't you ever email me again. Listen, the other three women who didn't apply, maybe they did feel that way. Maybe they did feel, who's this person emailing me? But they didn't say that, right? They just didn't, whatever. But I know that this person who did reach out was on my path. She was the one who was supposed to reach out to me or reply back to me. And she said, she's a VP. She didn't know me from a can of paint. And I reached out and we met. She said, let's set up a Zoom call. We met on Zoom, and I now have that relationship. Even if I don't get, my dream job at Nickelodeon or whatever, I now have that relationship to run things by. What do you think about this? I'm doing this. What can I use? Whatever the case. So, I know I may make it sound, but it really is.
Well, one question is, I think maybe some people out there are wondering, when you, for example, email a future I'm already saying like future supervisor.
Yeah.
When you email your future supervisor, what do you say? Like, what does that email look like?
Yeah, so it's very brief. I don't like give them a rundown or like the spark notes of my life, because I know that, I respect time.
They can watch this presentation.
Yeah. I respect time, so I don't want to like throw it all up in an email, right? If they see a random email from someone they don't know and it's like all these paragraphs, all these words, like they're not going to read all that, right? And so I keep it very brief. I say hello. I address them. Hello. My name is Anisha DuBois. I applied for the position via whatever, but I also wanted to take time to email you and, send you my information. I've attached my resume for your review. I've done this. At your earliest convenience, I would love to come in and discuss my qualifications further. Simple. Make 2 paragraphs. And then in the subject, with well-known my fashion company, I use a mail platform called MailChimp, where we email all of our customers. And even at Wildfox, the subject is the most important, because if you don't put something in that subject interesting enough, no one's gonna even open it. If you put, you won $5 million, nowadays probably won't, but like someone may open it. If you put, you owe me 5,000, somebody may not open it, right? That subject is very important. So I'm also very cognizant of what I put in the subject. So let's say if I wanted to apply for a PR manager role, I would put in the subject, Anisha Dubois. I'll put hi. I put hi, so hi from Anisha Dubois. And then in parentheses, I'll put in application for the PR manager role for Wallfox. And again, it's letting them, I'm coming in nice and gentle. Like hi from Anisha Dubois in the subject, and then in parentheses I put in application for whatever. For instance, when I reached out to the lady who worked at Nickelodeon after hearing her on the panel, in my subject I put hi from the NAACP ACE panel, so that she knows, oh, she was a panelist. She listened to me on the panel, so it made her open it clearly, and then she replied. So yeah, keep it brief, but make sure you're including all of the information in there. So like, the person has like, oh, they want this, so that you put something in the subject too to make them want to open it. And again, don't put nothing crazy. Like don't try to put like a wow factor to get their attention. Like, you want $5 million, but just hi from, Alejandra, hi from Oleg, and just, keep it brief.
Sounds good. So next question is, it's a very, very simple question, but it's very important these days. Never interviewed online. Any tips or suggestions?
So the only interview I've done online was when I started being the consultant for Los Angeles Apparel, but it was more comfortable because I didn't know the person who was bringing me on. I would say in interviewing online, just be very, you can still have your sweatpants on, but just be very welcoming from, the chest up. I would say pay attention to your background. I think it's just so crazy because it's something that we've never had to do it before. So I'm learning as I go as well. Well lit, keep the noise to a minimum. My daughter's in the back bedroom, and I told her father, do not let her out by no means.
She's 3. I have a 3-year-old too. I understand.
So by no means don't let her out there.
He's downstairs.
Yeah. And then also too, I would say be ready to share your screen, because you never know, they may say, hey, do you have anything you want to show us? Because you're missing out on that one-on-one interaction. So a lot of interviews are being done in person now, but let's just say this company is not. Let's say the job is going to be remote from the start. Everything I was telling you to present and have ready in that interview, make it so that if they don't ask you to share your screen, ask if you can share your screen. Can I share my screen and show you, something I've done or something I've worked on for the company? Or, if you bring me in, I'm ready to hit the ground running. So I would say that, those would be my tips for any online interviews.
I also did a video earlier in the pandemic, 5 remote interview
Yeah.
fails and how to avoid them. I'm going to post that in the chat also. And actually,
Yes.
I mentioned some of the things that you mentioned. So it'll be review and a little bit more.
Yeah. Yes.
So let's see. I appreciate that you talked about mental health and anxiety in particular. Do you have any advice for us daring to go for an exciting or ambitious job after experiencing burnout at a previous job?
Any experience? Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Yeah, it's so the person has, let me grab it. It's down below here. I just clicked it off and I'm trying to figure out where I put it.
I think I see it. It says, I appreciate that you talked about mental health.
Yes.
In particular, it's from Gail. Hi, Gail. Do you have any advice for daring to go for an exciting or ambitious job after experiencing a burnout at a previous job? She does not want to get burned out again.
Yes.
I would say, what I found, like I mentioned earlier, what I found is that when you had that nudge, right, or that inkling to move on and move and go forth and onward and upward somewhere else, do so. Because that burnout hurts you, right? It mentally, physically, emotionally, when I knew that I can't stand coming to this job, like e-news was my dream job, right? But after a while, it became my dream job fulfilled, right? After a while, I wanted to do something else. I didn't want to come in every day and talk about Kim Kardashian. Like that was really like what I would have to do. I didn't want to come in and talk about the dress that this person wore on the red carpet. And even though it was a dream job, it had become a dream job fulfilled. And even that, I felt myself becoming burned out at e-news, which is like, what? You're crazy. My grandma said the same thing. What? She's crazy. But my advice would be, when you feel the first thing I'll say is, when you feel yourself getting to that burnout, plan your exit strategy. When you feel like I just don't want to do this anymore, and the workload or whatever the case, when you feel that coming, plan your exit strategy to get out before that burnout actually comes. Because when that burnout comes, you're no good to nobody, right? You're no good to yourself. And then when you're no good to yourself, you're no good for your children, your spouse, or whomever, and the next job you go to, right? Because you may have that anxiety, like, and then I would say, any advice for daring to go forward? I think Gail, you answered it, right? You were burned out at one, and now you want to move on to something that's exciting or ambitious. Go for it, right? You had that thought of wanting to do something else or something in a totally different field, or you had that thought of getting out of this and going into something else. Use that thought as confidence that this is where I'm supposed to go. I am being led here, right? I went from music and was led to sports and led to pop culture and led to fashion. And like, I was led these places because I followed that inkling, that nudge, that nudge for something more exciting, right? Voiceover is by far more exciting than sports entertainment and my time at e-news, right? And I don't get burnt out. I literally audition. The longest audition may take me 2 minutes to do. My sessions may take me anywhere from 15 minutes to my Netflix session took me like 3 hours because we were doing dubbing. And it wasn't any burnout. It was 3 hours. I got paid as if I did 30 days of work, and then I was on to the next, right? So just keep going for it. Like when you get that, again, when you get that inkling that I'm stressing myself out, plan your exit strategy into something that you see for yourself as more exciting and more adventurous, and more ambitious.
I think that's what this whole presentation is about, what to do at that point. Like you're ready to go.
Yeah,
Dare to
and
get the
just
job.
go. And I just dared myself to do it. And the longest I was out of a job was between e-news and Wild Fox. And I think it's because I couldn't make up my mind, right? I was applying for any and everything. I'll do this. I'll do assistant this. I'll just do anything just to get a job. And I wasn't getting anything. And it was a year. I was just like, and as soon as I said, okay, PR, okay, what type of PR? Fashion PR. 2 weeks later, I saw the position for Wild Fox, got the job a week and a half later. So just like, I think too, you have to be very clear, right? Very clear about what it is I want to do now. And you don't have, like, you may say what I want to do in 10 years. What I wanted to do in 10 years ago was not what I'm doing now. However, I'm excited about what I'm doing now. But just be very clear about what you want to do now. You'll eventually get to the 10 years from now, but just be clear about what you want to do now, and it'll just keep leading you. Again, I keep saying this, but it'll keep leading you onward and upward, in your journey of happiness. I am now at a place where I could never see myself going back into an office, only because I see that I can get the work done from home, so I don't have to like stress about the commute and honk about the traffic on the 405 or the 101. So I am at a place now where I'm very like, anything I do, I have to be able to work from home. If you want me to come in and for a meeting for an hour once, sure, fine. But, be clear about what you want. And what I want right now is for any role that I have to allow me to stay home and watch my daughter grow. Now, don't get me wrong, she drives me crazy sometimes, but
That's their job.
being here, Yeah, right. That's her job. Being here, and I'm very clear about that. So I would say get very clear. You have that inkling, that itch, that nudge. Do it.
All right.
Your
So
inner compass won't lead you wrong.
any advice for people who have been out of the workforce for years as a caregiver for minor ailing family members and had limited work experience before then?
Um,
That's a question we get a lot, actually.
yeah. Can you repeat it one more time?
Sure. Any advice for people who have been out of the workforce for years as a caregiver
Mhm.
for a minor or ailing family members and had limited work history before then?
Um, my advice would be, when you see I think it first depends on what you want to do, right? Do you want to go back into that field? Do you want to try going into something else? But if you want to go into that field, or back into the caregiving space, I don't think, I think caregiving, my mother did it for my grandmother for 8 years. And she was, she didn't go to school or anything for it, but I think in the case of being a caregiver, that's within you, right? Like you care about people, you care deeply enough about children and the elderly. I don't think you ever lose that. So that gap in your work history, I don't
Mhm.
think I don't think that's a negative, right? Because you still have that within you. You don't forget how to care for people if it's something that you do, as a professionally. So I would say, you want to get back into it, hit the job sites, see what's out there, apply, email. And in that email, you can say, I applied via LinkedIn, but I also wanted to reach out to you. I took a 2-year gap. I took a 1-year gap because I had a child. I took a 1-year gap with the pandemic. I lost my client to COVID. Hopefully that's not the case. But whatever, that just, you can explain that in the email, right? And that person will see that. Listen, we're all human, right? No, so, if a company sees, let's say you took a break for personal reasons, if the company doesn't recognize that or sees it as a negative, that's a company you don't want to be at anyway, right? There's plenty more who would love your expertise and respect, or love your experience and respect that break that you took. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Everybody brings something to a job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
What would you suggest for those of us who to market ourselves? Like, how do you create that personal brand if you basically don't have one, or if you haven't thought about
Um,
it?
yeah. So when I started, for instance, when I made the decision, once I got pregnant, when I made the decision that I wanted to be a brand within myself, right? I had no idea what that looked like. I came from fashion where but my thought process was, if I can market these multi-million-dollar brands, just me, why can't I do that for myself? I know me more than anybody else. Why can't I market myself? And that's what I began to do. So, when I wrote my self-help journal, I began reaching out to podcasts on self-care and reaching out and saying, I do this, I did this, I just published this. I would love to chat with your listeners. When I wrote my children's book, I am marketing it myself. Last school year, I read to over 1,000 elementary school students, just reaching out to principals. Next week, I literally am flying back east on Saturday, because Monday I am reading at a local library in my hometown. On Tuesday, I am going to Richmond, Virginia to read to a private charter school. And then on Wednesday, there's like a little town museum in the DMV area. I'm going to be doing their story time. In LA, I did the story time at Barnes and Noble. And then on Thursday, I'll be going back to New Jersey to speak to pre-K through 8th grade, reading pre-K through 4th, the book, and then 5th through 8th grade, just talking to them about my career journey and how I relate to them. So it's just reaching out. I didn't know these people. I just said, I have this and I believe in it. I believe in it so much so. Sorry, my dog is like, I'm talking about my daughter and then my dog's back there snoring. Sport. Thank you.
I don't know. Didn't hear.
I'm like,
I didn't hear it at all. Actually, I didn't.
he's snoring so loud.
Oh
And
wait, there it
so
was.
you heard him, right?
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, he's a French bulldog a mix. So,
Mhm.
he has like short
Yeah.
snout. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, in reaching out, I didn't know people I was reaching out to, Barnes and Noble, and it could be intimidating. I'm reaching out to Barnes and Noble to read. I'm reaching out to an elementary school, but I just dared myself to do it. And I haven't been led astray. I am marketing this book, and because I've been marketing myself so well, that's how I got a distributor for my book, because they saw, and what's crazy is I didn't know this, but when I was reaching out to distributors, some, weren't getting back to me. I had calls with some, and they wanted to know, what are you doing to market it? Like, we're gonna get it out there, but what are you also doing? And when I told them what I'm doing, it was like, oh,
You're
so
going on tour.
yeah, I'm basically going on tour. Okay, I am like Lady Gaga. Sold out dates. So I would just say, what you're good at, right? And for me, I'm good at a lot of things. So now, I do voiceover, and I feel like I've mastered the art of voiceover. I almost have. I'm very good at it. I'm getting booked on major networks, but now I'm wanting to create shows for children and content creation for children, right? And it's me reaching out with my ideas. I had this idea. What do you think? You want me to develop it a bit more? Absolutely. And now I have a children's audio podcast premiering this month. And it's just me believing that I have something that I think you all need. You're I'm not going to tell the company, hey, you are lacking. You need me. But in a few words, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have something so great. My children's book, Passport Poppy, I believe in travel and what that does for children, our adults, and what that does for us and how it stimulates us. And I want to tell these children, travel. Like, when I first moved to LA 11 years ago, people, when I go back, even now, when I go back home, people act as if Los Angeles is 21 hours away from the East Coast. And it's only a 5-hour plane ride, 3.5 hours on a red eye, and if you get it on a good day, if you go to priceline.com, you can get a ticket for like $125, right? But it's just, I just believe in all of the different things that I do. I believe in them 100%. And even if I believe in them 90%, I wait till I believe in it 100% before I put it out there. So to whoever answered that question, just, if you have something that you do and you believe you do it so well, reach out. How do you want to get it out there to the masses? Do you want to get it on Nickelodeon? Okay, email the person who's the Nickelodeon development, right? If you want to read your book to children at schools, reach out to principals and say, I have this book. It talks about traveling. It's very interactive. And there was no, I'm like, I have this very, I have this very just do it attitude, right? Because again, like, no one's gonna blast me off to Mars for emailing them or reaching out to them. It's all about connectivity. And it's not a take relationship. I'm not reaching out to you, just for you to do something for me. Like, it's a give and take. Yes, I want to come speak to your school, and yes, you may pay me this amount of money to do so. So that's what I'm getting, but I'm also giving to you and your students and letting them know about traveling. And the next book I have coming up is introducing a different language and just different things like that. And so yeah, if you market yourself, get yourself out there.
Many different ways.
Many different ways, yeah.
And there are a lot of books about it too. So if you're interested in building your own brand, just type in the library catalog, building your own brand, and you'll get, books, 300 pages on building your own brand.
Yeah. And again, it's and I'm very big into self-help books, right? And what I need to do internally and what my thought process needs to be in order for me to give, right? So again, when I'm doubting, when I'm thinking should I reach out right now? I will open up any book on my bookshelf and it gives me exactly what I'm looking for. I remember one time I had reached out to, when I was pitching one of my shows, I had reached out blindly to this guy. And he wanted to know what made you reach out to me? And he just wasn't nice. And it wasn't he wasn't don't you ever, it wasn't like that, but he just wanted to know how I, found his information. And his response wasn't what I was expecting. And I remember I had my phone in my hand. It was right after I had read his email and I had my phone in my hand. I don't know what I was doing. I was pressing buttons by mistake. And when I looked at my phone, I had somehow opened my notes. You have the notes on your phone, the notes app. I had opened the notes app from 2014 And in my notes app from 2014 was a church sermon that I heard. And the quote that I had wrote down said, if they get in your emotions, you forget your skill. And I was like, oh, thank you. It's crazy. It's insane how you're always protected, right? So even if you meet that jerk, of a guy, that jerk of a woman, it's okay, right? They're upset for some reason, but they're not gonna, I'm not taking in that energy. And when I saw that, that was what I needed. If he got in my emotions, and if I let that person upset me or whatever, then I forget my skill and what I came to do, right? And again, like I said, you have these ideas and these thoughts, you have them for a reason. It is for you. Like I didn't have the idea, Oleg didn't have the idea, LeBron James didn't have the idea, you had the idea. And it's because you're the only one. You in all of your magnificence, no matter where you are or what you're doing now, you are the only one who can bring that to fruition. And I believe in that 1000%.
So let's do a few more questions.
Yeah.
So we have, do you have any suggestions for those of us whose personalities are not like you? You're very enthusiastic, energetic, and attractive. I assume this is the key to your successful journey.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what was the first? The first part was.
do you have any suggestions for those of us whose personalities are not like you?
I would say what's crazy is even in voiceover, there are people who are more bubbly than me and a little bit more wackier than me. And I mean that in a good way. And sometimes I say like, I am not that excited. Like, why are they so excited? And I say that even in my enthusiastic, what you see right now, I sometimes sit and say, you're wacky. It is not that great. But I will say, I know in the presentation, I talked about like the roles that you feel called to do, they'll cause you to be a bit more enthusiastic, right? Don't get me wrong. I think sports are great. I watch Monday Night Football. I think sports are great. But I wasn't as necessarily enthusiastic about sports. Like I couldn't sit here and be this enthusiastic. I can be because it's a part of my career journey. But in talking about sports, I wasn't this, bubbly, I don't think. But it's just as I grew, right? And I just knew, when you're called to greater things than where you are now, it kind of pulls things out of you, right? So it pulls me to be a bit more bubbly or a bit more, hi, how are you? Or, rather than before when I was at E-News even, I would go to an event, get my drink and sit in the corner and watch everything. But then when I went to get into fashion PR, I had no choice but to be more bubbly, right? Because I was throwing events. So when the editor for LA Times came, when the editor for Pop Sugar came, I had to say, hey, Sarah, hey, Lisa, how are you? It's small talk. So I just think, don't force yourself. You don't have to force yourself to do anything you're not comfortable with, but you'll when it feels right, it'll feel right. The next step in your journey and your progression, it'll call you, if it's the right time, it'll call you to be a bit more out your shell, a bit more enthusiastic because you're excited about something. You may have been doing something like me at, E-News. I was doing it for 2 years. Maybe after a year and a half, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, about it. But then when I got into Wild Fox, I was bubbly, ready to go. And that's what she said. She said, you got the job because you were the most excited. Don't ask me where that excitement came from. But I think it just was the next step in my journey. And it called me to do that. I was excited about it. So I think that's a good tip too, is do things that excite you, your passion. Like those things are like what you are happy about. Like I could never be enthusiastic about flying planes. Like I just doesn't excite me. I'm appreciative of what they do, but I just couldn't do that, right? It draws no type of excitement out of me. I'd rather be a passenger going somewhere to an island. But follow those things that excite you, that you become enthusiastic about when you're talking about it, that get a rise out of you, because it'll cause you to talk about it, how I talk about voiceovers, to talk about it, how I talk about going on tour to read my daughter's book. So just follow that path. Follow, and your passion is like, it'll be what you love to do. And it may be what you love to do for 2 years. It may be what you love to do for 5 years, 10 years. But so long as you keep loving what you're doing, keep going. when you feel that I don't want to do this anymore, that burnout, it's okay. It's okay. My grandmother will tell you it's not okay, but I'm telling you, it's okay. That just means there's something else. Like you've learned all you've needed to learn here. Now I have something else for you, or you should be doing this, or use what you learned here to do something else. You're being called to greater, things. And it's the saying onward and upward, right? It's that progression that you just gotta keep
Yeah.
growing and, getting out of your shell.
And it's not this, there's a difference between, there's a distinction between having daring and courage
Mhm,
to reach out to somebody
mhm,
and being very expressive and very excitable and very bubbly.
mhm.
In certain professions and industries, that that's not really called for. Like if you're doing logistics at a trucking company,
Yeah,
you don't need to bounce up in there and just be like,
yeah,
be all crazy.
exactly.
You can still
Exactly.
be passionate about something without,
Absolutely.
without being
That
big
bubbly.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I've come to become that with voiceovers, right? And then I
Mhm.
teach students via Zoom, and I can't be, just sitting there like this,
Right.
because they're probably going to X out the Zoom and be and be like, she's so boring.
Right.
But the feedback that I get from students is that, like, 8:30 in the morning, thank you for your energy, because it gets, so I just
Mhm.
think, like you said, it's what the role calls for,
Mhm.
like, let's say if I worked in a library, I have to be very kind of monotone, right? I can't be screaming in the library because people are reading or studying or things like that. So I
You
just
can't
want
be
to,
screaming.
yeah, I can't be
Well,
screaming. I gotta
actually,
keep
you shouldn't
it,
be screaming.
yeah, I gotta keep it very,
You'd be
monotone.
little bit not quieter.
And listen, I may be a librarian Monday through Friday, but then I may be a bartender Saturday and
I don't
Sunday.
know. I mean, at the library, I smile a lot at the library, so
Yeah. So
so you
it's
could
just,
smile without screaming.
yeah, exactly. So it's just, I think, like you said, like, it's just what the
Mhm.
role calls for, and
That's
then
true.
what you're comfortable with at that time.
Mhm. So I've got two questions about age,
Yes.
and this is an important topic. It comes up a lot during our questions, or during Q&A sessions for Work Ready. So they're both essentially similar,
Mhm.
and they're about somebody's close to retirement in their 60s, 70s.
Mhm.
Um, at that age, what advice do you have for starting in a new industry, or why should a company hire that person? Basically building that self-confidence.
Um, I would say, it's I think no matter the age, right? Like, you're still here, you're still breathing, and you're still living for a reason, right? You still have a lot to contribute. So if you want to start in a new industry, do so. Like, if you don't, let's say if you have the finances and you just want to, volunteer. And that can be your way into, a new industry. And then, all, like, as far as, I think hopefully you, you have the finances to, begin to do what you love. I think it goes back to my grandmother's generation, right? She passed away in her 80s, and she was a year ago, and she was basically like, you we were taught, you get a job and you stay in it, and then once you retire, you travel and you do what you love. So I think it just depends on, what the situation is. And if you have the freedom, if you have the finances to just live your life, you have worked and you've contributed amazingly, to society. And if you have the opportunity, there's so many, even in the fashion world, there's so many fashion bloggers who are like 70, 80, and we, as the younger generation, we eat it up. We want to interview them, send them product. There are, older couples who are traveling and documenting their travels, and there's careers built off that, six-figure careers built off that. So if you want to travel, you can monetize it. You can reach out to companies and say, I'm traveling here and I have this story, would love, if you want to gift me suitcases. Every brand has a PR department that wants to give things away, because we want you to use it and post about it and tag us, right? Because we live in this age of social media. So I think it just depends what you want to do. Do you want to get back in and just volunteer somewhere for a few days? Do you want to, get back into a different industry, back into the 9 to 5 altogether? Do you just want to travel? You can, whatever, like, at 60, the options are endless, just as they are for me at 38. And I, again, 1000% believe that.
So 2 more questions. The first one is, should we ignore the no calls please in job postings?
Yes, for sure. I would say so that's why I never call. So I never call. I always just email. Because no one really has no emails, please. No call. I get the no calls. However, let's just say if you can't find the contact, or let's just say it says you will be applying to the IT supervisor, but you can't find the IT supervisor's name. I've done this before. I've called a company, you get the receptionist, you say, I'm trying to reach the IT manager, and they can give you his name, or like I've called places and they've given me I said, I'm trying to reach whatever, I'm trying to reach whomever an application for, might you have their email? People are much more inclined to give out an email than they are to do a phone number or to give out a phone number. And I think we can all attest to that. When we get those calls from numbers we don't know, we're like, hello. Yeah, it's like exactly. You're like, hello, and you like when my mom gets a call from someone she doesn't know, she's like mean. Hello, she's so mean about. But so I get the no calls, and for that reason, I don't do that at all. Even if it doesn't say no calls, please, I just don't call unless I'm calling the receptionist to try to get an email that I can't find online. So yeah, when it says that, don't do it. If it says no emails, I've never seen that, but if it says no emails, don't worry about it. But yeah, I've never seen no emails, but if it says no calls, I wouldn't call. Yeah.
Okay, so last question, and this is kind of a long question, but it's a good one to end on.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm an introvert too, and have been working in entertainment for the last 15 years. Networking has always been exhausting and stressful for me, but it's the only way to grow relationships and get a new role in my field. The pandemic greatly reduced this aspect of my work life. I've loved that, but my networking was in a holding pattern. I'm trying to jumpstart networking, but because I'm looking for a new role now, but I'm finding it very challenging to overcome the dread and get out there to find the right opportunity. Any practical advice for shaking that off and warming up to this key aspect to getting my new role?
I'll tell you what I've done because again, we've all been stuck in the house, right? So we're all in the same boat. We're all just getting our feet back into getting our feet wet and getting back out there. But I knew that, my work, unless it's a studio or something, doesn't really call for me, to be in front of people a lot anymore, like I was, in-house. And so I used to be a member at Soho House, and last week I reinstated my membership. I had stopped when the pandemic hit, and I was like, I need to get back out there, because when you go to Soho House, you sit, you have your drink or your lunch, or you work from there, and you see people, you overhear conversations, people come up to you, you say hello, and that helps me in fellowshipping. So I would just say, go to the coffee shop, in your area, or, if there is, for instance, my way of networking, most recently was the women in, the NAACP ACE panel, right? They were doing the panel via Zoom, and I listened to these women speak, just as you all are listening to me and Oleg. And afterwards, I emailed them, and like that was my way of just let me just do it. Like, there wasn't an event I could go up to the person and say, hi, thank you so much. It was just, I heard you speak a month ago, and I just wanted to reach out. Thank you so much. And slowly but surely. And then from there came a Zoom call, right? So then we're face to face on a computer, and that's helping, so just take the little steps to, if there's a women in animation, like company. And so I reached out to the person who does events, and I said, hey, I do this in animation. I would just love to be a part of it. She said, yeah, did you want to join? I joined. It's $50 for the year. I joined. And she said, yeah, we should work together on putting something together, do some type of presentation. All I did was email. And so it's just, again, just daring yourself to do it. Just reach out and say, you don't have to reach out first and say, hey, you want to meet for drinks or anything like that, because that may scare them and may scare you. But if you just start small and, hi, how are you? I'm just reaching out. I do this, would love to stay connected. I end all of my emails, all of my intro emails, I end with looking forward to connecting, because that is what we need as human. Like, we need to connect with individuals, right? Whether we want something or need something from them or not, it's just that connection with people. So I end all of my emails, my intro emails, with greatly looking forward to connecting. And I mean that. So I would just slowly but surely just find out, oh, they're having this panel here, or, the library is doing this and I should go here, or look, my local library or my local, coffee shop is doing a meet the neighborhood, and just slowly but surely, because you never know, who lives in your neighborhood, who lives in your building, who knows who overhears your conversation. And yeah.
It's the small steps.
Small step.
It's
You
like,
don't have to
one day, identify who you're going to send an email to.
Yeah.
The next day, write the email. The next day, send the email.
That's it. And
Little things. Yeah.
No, one step at a time. And it's just, I forgot which one of my self-help books says this, but it talks about just forward motion, one tiny step at a time. You don't have to take one giant leap from 1 to 10. Just from 1, 2, 3, then maybe skip to 5, then 7, then
there you go. Momentum.
Yeah, just
the power of momentum.
What you feel comfortable with, but as long as you're continuing to move forward and push forward and forward motion and push yourself to send that email, like you may have your finger on the send button shaking, like I don't want to click send, because what if you don't, like what if I, like, you get the job and then you're like, what if I did? I was really scared to send them that email. Like, listen, the person I reached out to at Nickelodeon, she was the VP. If I were like, if I was like, she replied back to me and we were on Zoom in a week. And now I'm thinking, what if I was too scared to just email her?
Yeah.
My own anxiety, my own fear for no reason. She's a human like I am. She started where I was, and what if I was too scared? I would still be sitting here with my ideas, no one to give them to, scared. But I dared myself to email her. I dared myself to find her email, dared myself, and it was over a week's time. I dared myself to email her. I wrote the email. I kept it in my draft so that I can look it over, make sure it wasn't no grammatical errors. And I sent it, and I didn't hear back from her for about a week. She told me she was going on vacation for a week and a follow-up that next Monday. Monday morning, I followed up. We were on Zoom that next Wednesday. All because I just took the steps. I'm telling you all, just like Nike said, just do it.
The advice of the day. And that's great advice. That's great advice to finish on, whatever it is, just do it.
Okay, just do it.
Somebody mentioned that, put in the chat, remember, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Yes,
exactly.
Yes, indeed.
Exactly.
Well, Anisha, thank you so much for this joyous and inspiring motivational presentation. You gave practical advice. You gave enthusiasm. I feel invigorated. And
thank you so
all
much.
The folks
I'm
out
so
there.
Grateful for everyone your questions, for listening to me. Immense gratitude, because we only get 24 hours in a day, and you all chose to spend an hour and a half of that with me and Oleg, and I am so grateful to you. So thank you. And I know you all will do well on your journey. We were all meant to come together at 11:15 today for a reason, so that we can continue on our journey. So wishing you all positive thoughts and going after and achieving all that your heart's desires.
All right, everybody. Hopefully see you next week at Creativity and Career Pivots. I'm going to send out a post-event survey and post-event survey in the chat. So if you can fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. And once again, thank you, Anisha, and to everybody, good afternoon.